you've seen kind of Bitcoin level off here and really limit itself in terms of how much more interest can be drawn in the wake of the advent of the ETF and in the wake of the halving. What's the next catalyst? And is Bitcoin being suppressed at these levels kind of a cap on how big the industry could grow?
Bitcoin's price has leveled off. Is Bitcoin being suppressed at these levels? With the Bitcoin ETF launch and Bitcoin halving behind us, is there a cap on how big Bitcoin can grow? Not to mention crypto at large. Breaking news: Grayscale just withdrew their Futures Ethereum ETF application. What is going on with the SEC going after Kraken, Coinbase, Uniswap, MetaMask, now Robinhood? We need some real answers. Alex Thorn, an insider, Galaxy Digital's head of research, just revealed what's next for this industry. Listen closely.
We're joined now by Alex Thorn, Galaxy Digital head of research. Alex, we were talking with Kavita a little bit earlier about the uncertainties that are created by the regulatory environment, and curious from your perspective on limitations here. You know, stable coins are the closest thing to real money, I guess. But what about everything else being built on these chains?
Yeah, hey, Shanali. Hey, Tim. Great to be back. It's a great question. There's a lot of stuff being built. I think DeFi is still a huge sector inside crypto that has a lot of regulatory uncertainty and a lot of opportunity. I think if you look at where the SEC has been very focused in the US, it's primarily around questions of whether you've issued tokens that they think are unregistered securities or whether you're facilitating the trading of tokens they think are unregistered securities. So effectively acting what they say as an unregistered national securities exchange. This is a huge question for DeFi. I would say most of the inquiries and Wells notices and enforcements that have been brought by the Securities and Exchange Commission don't really touch the Bitcoin world. And so that, I think, uncertainty about the regulatory standing of Ethereum and its applications has contributed to Bitcoin's outperformance during this bull run.
Gary Gensler and the SEC has created a chilling effect on the crypto industry in the US.
It's hard to tell how much of your focus today is on the stock market writ large versus the world of crypto and trying to figure out the future of Ethereum and other things. How do you see it?
Well, I see it this way. We oversee a $110 trillion capital market. About half of that's the stock market. Half, as you might know, is the bond markets and other markets. Crypto is a small piece of our overall markets, but it's an outsized piece of the scams and frauds and problems in our markets. Without prejudging any one token, much of this field is non-compliant with the protections of our securities laws.
And with that, we're seeing things I never thought we'd see. Grayscale withdrawing their Futures Ethereum ETF. This has confused even the experts, because you remember it was the Bitcoin Futures ETF approval that was pivotal in allowing the spot Bitcoin ETFs to get approved. So why would Grayscale do this? In my mind, might as well make the SEC write up an approval or denial for an Ethereum Futures ETF and go from there. Maybe the SEC spoke with Grayscale about this? Make sure you subscribe. This is a developing story. We keep you updated on everything crypto on a daily basis. Subscribe. So I guess Bitcoin's safe, but the rest of the crypto industry might not be safe? Here, Alex Thorn explains how there is much more Bitcoin ETF demand set to come.
How do you think about how this all impacts kind of projects moving forward? If we're thinking about all the uncertainty in the industry, you're saying Bitcoin is kind of exempt right now from a lot of that uncertainty. Does that just create more money flowing into Bitcoin? And what is the case for that? I mean, you've seen kind of Bitcoin level off here and really limit itself in terms of how much more interest can be drawn in the wake of the advent of the ETF and in the wake of the halving. What's the next catalyst? And is Bitcoin being suppressed at these levels kind of a cap on how big the industry could grow?
Pointed question. I appreciate it very much. I think that we've had such an extreme rise. I mean, Bitcoin's up over 280% since January 23. It's up over 50% this year. It's reasonable for any asset has risen that much to cool off a bit. Frankly, I mean, it's almost humorous because I was on the show over a year ago, and we were talking when Bitcoin was about $22,000 about the prospects. Obviously, a lot can change for Bitcoin. From Catalyst standpoint, you have these advisor platforms and wealth management platforms that really haven't turned on selling Bitcoin ETFs on an unsolicited basis yet. When we predicted in October that there would be 13 or 14 billion in net inflows into these ETFs, that was solely relying on those wealth management platforms and advisors. And instead, we've seen about that much come in pretty much through brokerage trading platforms. So I think you'll see a lot more interest. Obviously, the macro situation is part of that. I think if obviously with rates and if we see some easing on the monetary side, risk assets in general will benefit. I think broadly to the first part of your question, I think, you know, when you think of what Bitcoin developers and the ecosystem are working on now, it's getting much more interesting on layer 2s, on DeFi. I think that could drive more interest in the sort of Bitcoin investment case beyond simply Bitcoin as digital gold or a scarce, you know, non-sovereign monetary asset. But I think that core case remains very strong. I would say it is stifling, to the prior guest's point, some builders and investment in the U.S. That being said, in Q1, I think over $2.5 billion was invested by venture capitalists into 600 plus crypto-related deals. The vast majority, I should say the vast plurality of both deals and dollars invested in companies founded and headquartered in the United States. So the U.S. is still the leader. Policymakers just need to be wary that they don't stifle what could be major innovation for the future.
Alex, what about the recent flows into the ETFs? What are they telling you about the direction moving forward?
I would say that obviously we saw significant outflows over the prior 2 weeks as Bitcoin dipped below 60,000. I don't personally believe that the outflows necessarily caused the dip. I think if you look at the flows versus the daily float on Bitcoin, they're still not really the majority at all. I think you saw some folks take gains perhaps, and that accounts for some of the outflows, but something like 90+% of the capital that came into those ETFs between February and April did not exit last week. So I happen to think that the ETF buyers, particularly later when they're comprised primarily of advisors and wealth managers, will be sort of stronger hands than short-term traders.
Right.
And I think the outflows showed that.
Bitcoin has clear skies for now. Crypto is being suppressed, in my opinion, but will come back stronger than ever. You cannot keep decentralized permissionless protocols that are open to anybody to use down. Now, the way I see it this year, things are still looking pretty good going into November. This year, 2024, going into the US elections, I'm bullish. And Bitcoin's going to lead us. But the big question on my mind is 2025. To be bullish on Bitcoin and crypto in 2025, does it rely on who is elected US president? Who would be a better president for crypto? What do the experts think?
Hey, Alex, the regulatory regime could change in early November with the election. I'm wondering from your perspective, as Galaxy Digital head of research, which presidential candidate out there right now is best for the crypto community?
I think in general, any kind of change in posture at the major market regulators would be beneficial, whether that comes due to retirement or a new administration coming into office. I think it sort of remains to be seen. I think even in the case that the current administration stays, we're likely to see some changes that are beneficial. You've got bipartisan support in Congress for changes in the way regulators have approached this industry. But there's no doubt that Republican allies in the House and in the Senate are more favorable to digital assets.
So essentially you're saying anyone who's there, apart from who's there right now, would be an improvement?
I mean, look,
Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it could improve in any case, but
Okay.
the prior Republican administration was more amenable, and I think now you've seen, whether it's from candidates for the Republican nomination, independent candidates, there's a swath of candidates across the sort of whole ecosystem, even Democratic challenger, that are more favorable to digital assets than the current administration.